Hello, I'm Tom Stapledon, and I've got another talk and slideshow on behalf of the Friends of Williamson's Tunnels here. This time I'm going to take you on a walk through and look into all the corners that you might not normally see if you came on a visit of one of our rather interesting chambers, or I think it's one of the most interesting chambers that we have, and that's the magnet chamber. We do take visitors into the magnet chamber when we do guided tours, but not many people get to see in all the nooks and crannies, and it's quite an intricate little area. I think it's one of the most interesting places that we've discovered. Unfortunately, we're boxed into a very small area of it, with great ambitions to move outwards and discover more in both directions, but we are stuck in quite a small area at the moment. I'll explain as we go on. Anyway, going back to 2018 sometime, we were madly digging, uncovering new things, emptying out chambers, discovering places we didn't know existed on the Williamson house site here. This photograph is part of the basement kitchen below Williamson's house, which we uncovered. We had no idea it was even there until we started breaking up the concrete and discovered it. And the reason I'm showing you this and this photograph is because where we're going is directly below here. The diggers at this point are standing on the floor of the basement kitchen, and below that lies the banqueting hall. And it was when we were emptying out the banqueting hall, just coming to the end of the process of emptying out the banqueting hall, we discovered something new and exciting and realized that there was another chamber just a few feet away, right next door to it. And we hadn't really known of its existence. Now, where this gentleman is standing here, directly above him on the brickwork, there's a red splash, and a red splash on the fence directly above where Ben's standing. And I just wanted to point that out because we're going down below now into the banqueting hall there. And this photograph is taken looking across the banqueting hall floor when we'd emptied it down to its actual, what we thought was its floor level, which is around here, and then discovered there was a deep trench going a lot lower, another 8 feet down, I think it is, down there from the main floor. And when we emptied this out, followed the trench down there, way below the main floor, we found this little rock cut opening. I must just point something out before we go any further. We're going to go through that rock cut opening, only about 3 feet, into another chamber on the other side, which is the magnet chamber. The magnet chamber is as big as the banqueting hall, or as wide as the banqueting hall at this point, at about 15 feet wide, with a brick arched roof above it, but it's much lower in the ground. And there's a red mark there, which we put on the wall of the banqueting hall. Don't know whether you can see that in the photo. And that's level with the top, the very top of the brick arch of the magnet chamber next door. So this is what it looked like. Very exciting thing to find. We hadn't seen a rock cut tunnel before. That wasn't the general way that Williamson seems to have worked, but there's one here. Got excited and then found it was only about 3 feet deep. And then we discovered there's a brick wall beyond it. You can't really see it very well in this, but it is, or was to us, a brick wall, until we discovered that we couldn't get a 5-foot-long drill through it. So we knew it was something far more substantial than a brick wall. We soon found out that it only overlapped. It was built on the other side of this opening, not into it. And we soon found out by pushing a drill through diagonally that we went through into something much looser. So the wall, as we thought, only overlapped the opening by a little way, which made us realize, of course, that it was built from the other side, which means there's another chamber beyond. There was an awful lot of excitement when we had that realization. Anyway, we had to chip away at it. Very, very tough engineering brick. It took us ages. We chipped away, made a small hole through the side of it there, and we found it was full of spoil. We bucketed it out, kept falling for weeks and weeks. We kept bucketing it out, made the hole a little bit bigger at a time, but it was really tough going until we got it big enough that we could push a hand through there with a camera and a torch pointing upwards, and saw another brick arched roof directly above, 5 meters up. Wonderful feeling to have found something else like that. So we eventually made the hole big enough when the spoil stopped falling out so that we could actually crawl through there and get through to the other side. And that's looking from the other side. So I'm going to do a walkthrough of the magnet chamber. I've now come through that. I have to come down that steep slope, bend almost double, crouch to get through. You don't have to kneel, but it is a definite crouch. You've got to be fit to get in and out there. And this is looking from the inside of the magnet chamber. You can see all this massive brickwork that we've chopped out here, out of what turned out to be a massive brick buttress going right up to the surface, about 5 foot square. Now, from this point, I will stand upright and I'll look straight above my head, looking back towards the banqueting hall wall. And there, 5 meters up above, is part of a brick arched roof of this chamber. Very much like the banqueting hall next door, but set much lower in the ground. If I now look straight ahead of me, there's the hole I came in through. If I look straight ahead rather than up in the air, this feature was facing us, and we didn't recognize it for what it was when we first came in. It wasn't until we saw more pieces of it in other parts of the chamber that we realized that what we're dealing with here is a tunnel that had a second arched roof. And this is the spring line cut into the rock face for the second lower arch, with a few of the bricks still clinging to it. But we didn't recognize it at that time. I'm going to chuck in just a couple in this set of photos, which are all taken all at the same time as I did this walkthrough in September 2023. But I'm throwing in a couple of photos of when we had recently climbed in there. This is one of the first sights we saw when we clambered in, looking straight up at the roof. In the corner where we'd been pulling all this spoil out, it had been nearly up to the roof in all of this area, and it had all come down bit by bit as we were digging it out through the small hole at the bottom until it stopped coming. And here on this side is a sheer face of rubble and spoil, bricks, lumps of stone, all sorts of stuff, which is still sitting there quite precariously. So when we first clambered inside here, it was really quite dodgy. You didn't know whether there was going to be a massive fall quite suddenly, but we soon put up some scaffolding structure to hold it back. The important thing is, I can tell you that what we've come in around through that little rock cut opening was a massive 5 foot square buttress. And now as I stand looking to my right, there's a second buttress just 10 feet away. It's also 5 foot deep and probably 5 foot across as well, although we can't see the other side of it. And it's been built right up through the roof of this chamber without destroying it. Turns out that there are 3 of these things. We're boxed into an area with 3 of these massive buttresses. There may be a 4th one, but we only know of 3. But this is the killer. This is a steel pile, which has been driven down years later. The buttresses were built in about 1929 by the Territorial Army. But these steel piles and concrete piles have been driven down in about 1970 as part of the foundations for the magnet joinery factory, which was built on this site around 1970 or 71. That's why we named this the magnet chamber, because it lies underneath where the magnet factory used to stand. So that's what we were faced with. And there are several of these which have done enormous damage where they've come down through the roof. Now I'm looking in the direction where I'm going to go next, around the side of the middle buttress here. But before I go on, I'll just look a bit more. Looking straight up in the air from where I'm standing by the opening, we created a massive scaffolding structure in here to hold back the spoil and to allow us to work and to empty it. And this is a high level platform that we put in. there's a step there, and then it goes up slightly higher to another platform, which is quite close up under the roof. And we'll be going up there to have a look later. If I look straight up in the air at this point, the hole where I came in through is just down in this corner, but I'm looking straight up at the roof, up the side of this brick buttress that we've come in around. Now then, going around the corner of the buttress, there's the back edge of it. I'm looking towards the other side of the chamber, and there's the main floor of it. And over there is another pile, only this one's a concrete pile. And beyond that is the third brick buttress. These three buttresses and the piles have boxed us in to a small length of what we believe to be a much longer chamber, but we're boxed into an area about 21 feet long. It's not a lot, but it's an interesting chamber all the same. Now I'm looking here at the top of the ladder that I'm going to climb down to get to the main floor and into the main area that we've excavated in the middle of the chamber. Step across onto the ladder and down to its floor. And now I've moved across the floor and I'm looking back to where I've just come from. Middle buttress, I've just stepped down from up there onto the third rung and down to the floor. Hope this is making some sense. I've now walked around the other side of the middle buttress and I'm looking up in the air again towards the roof. As I say, there's a massive scaffolding that we built up here, which makes it very difficult to take any decent photographs that show the whole thing, I'm afraid. We only show bits of it at a time. We do take visitors in here, but we don't take them up onto the upper level. So this is why I'm going to show you bits that very often people don't get to see. And of course, many visitors don't come in here at all because it's not the friendliest of places to be, and you've got to be fit to be able to climb in and out. I'm looking towards a massive area that we've shuttered off here with the scaffolding and scaffolding boards there to hold back a mountain of spoil. And I'll explain the reason why we've done that in a minute. But it means we have a very limited space in this chamber. Now I'm looking straight up in the air at the roof, brick arch roof in the middle of the chamber. This scaffolding, of course, is built from high up in the roof space and gradually extended down to reach the floor, which is not the way you're supposed to build scaffolding, but it was how we had to do it to accommodate the process of emptying all the spoil out of here. Now I'm looking back towards the far side and a little gate and fence that we put around here, because beyond there is a very deep gully which goes down another 15 feet, and you do not want to fall down there. So the gate is to protect people from the danger. There's the gate, and I'm going to look over the gate in a minute. I'm looking over the gate straight up at one of these concrete piles. What they do is they drill out with a big drill, an auger, a hole in the ground. This one's going down possibly about 60 feet in the ground. And when they've augered out the hole, they pour concrete. And then quite possibly they put in steel reinforcing rods. They didn't know what they were drilling it through. All they knew was they needed to secure the foundations for the building. And it's gone all the way down, punched through the roof and down to nearly 60 feet in the ground that we know of, but it may even go a bit deeper. And as it's gone through all the spoil that filled this chamber, the concrete has solidified and bricks and soil and rubbish have stuck to it on the outside. It's the only way I can describe it. Now, looking over the gate, you can see the edge of the main floor of the chamber there, but beyond it, a much deeper gully. I'm going to go through there now, through the gate, and I'm looking down into the gully, running across there, and then down another big drop down there. And on the left is the middle of the three buttresses that we had to chip our way around to come in. And that has been built right over an opening, which I believe was intended in Williamson's day to carry storm water away. It came down in a side chamber that we call the Gothic arch in the banqueting hall from drain channels running near the surface. The water goes down the channel across the banqueting hall, through the little rock cut tunnel, and then it would have dropped over a rim there, just under this buttress, and dropped about 8 feet down to just below the bottom of this ladder. And that, in really wet weather, would have been a small waterfall in Williamson's day. Now looking down to the deeper part, the first part of the gully here, from where the water comes in, and then it drops over an edge there and down a long way again. This is a good 15 feet below the main floor. You're looking there at the side, the rock side wall adjacent to the banqueting hall, the main rock floor of this chamber here, the point at which they stopped quarrying, and that is the third brick buttress boxing us into this small chamber, and that is the pile underneath all that rubbish. There's the concrete pile going right up through the roof. So that's really a very unfriendly space to try and work in, but we did dig all of this out right down to that depth, and by the time we got to the bottom of there, it was such a confined little space that it's impossible to work with a spade and bucket the stuff out. It was really a trowel job, and there were some big lumps of stone, and we just couldn't get any further, becoming a tighter and tighter space. From that same point, standing outside the gate, I'm looking straight up in the air towards the roof, and there's that spring line of the lower brick arch of the chamber with a few bricks clinging to it. It became obvious after we'd seen this in a few places, but it wasn't when we first came in. So now back through the gate, back onto the main floor, and I'm looking off in the direction that I first came in, from around the middle buttress there. And I'm going to go up onto the upper platform and show you around quite up high near the roof, the parts that people really don't get to see. So I've now climbed up onto the upper platform. This is the middle buttress. I'm looking down to the floor, and that corner is where I came in. And this is the ladder, vertically mounted ladder that I've climbed up, stepped across onto a platform here, and then up another step onto the main platform. So here we are on the main platform. I've come from the ladder, and that's the main platform. And it's quite high up under the roof space. See the roof very well from this spot. There's the middle buttress again here. That's the pile on the far side. And looking across here, you can see just how much scaffolding we've had to put in this area. Amazing structure. It took us a long, long time, and it was quite hard to get it right. But we made it safe, and that's the main thing. Another interesting feature is this sandstone buttress that juts out right into the middle of the chamber. So beyond that, the chamber's only half the width it would be if that buttress hadn't have been left standing. Obviously, they've cut out all the rest of the stone, but they've chosen to leave that standing for some reason, which we don't know. Here I'm on the platform and looking right up at the roof, which, as you can see, is not very far above me. And in the middle, where there are no piles or anything like that, and no buttresses being driven through, the brick arch roof of this chamber is in really very good condition, perfect condition, in fact, solid as a rock. But the one thing that did cause us an enormous amount of difficulty is this here. May not be very easy to see exactly what you're looking at, but I can tell you that that is one enormous slab of concrete. And what's happened is that they were drilling holes when they were doing the foundations for the factory, and they poured concrete, and they poured and poured and poured before they realized that they were wasting concrete, which is pouring away. The void above the spoil heap that filled most of this chamber had allowed the concrete to pour out over the top of the spoil heap, and then it solidified and stuck there. When we came in there and discovered that, there was no way we wanted to undermine it. We didn't know how safely it was clinging on to whatever it was attached to, but we certainly weren't going to be underneath it. So we had to make the decision to build this scaffolding structure, put these boards behind, and then we kept the area underneath that big concrete slab piled high with spoil. So if it ever did decide to break free, it would only fall a very short distance and be unlikely to do any great damage. There would be no massive impact as a result of it dropping, if it should drop. Looking slightly to the left, we're looking now at this sandstone buttress which juts into the middle of the chamber. Rather important that in a minute you'll see some photographs of something rather special which joins onto that buttress. I'm just going to look straight down towards the floor. There, it looks an awful long way. It's a nice photograph. That's the main floor of the chamber, which I've just come up from. And you can see quite clearly the platform I'm standing on is here right in front. And all that spoil is held back behind the boards there. And one more look, maybe a slightly better picture, looking at that big concrete flow. That's only part of it. It's come through the roof where a hole was drilled. They were about to pour concrete down it to form a pile. But in the end, I think they've decided to abandon that idea. And what they've actually put in was a steel pile because the concrete one didn't work. And they've wasted a lot of concrete into the bargain. So looking towards the other side now, middle corner of the middle buttress is here. I'm walking to the other end of the platform. There's another concrete pile and the third buttress beyond. This may be difficult to get your head around. Sometimes the only way is to be there, but I'm doing my best to explain and show what we've found. So if I look straight above my head at this point, that's a wonderful sight. That is one of the finest things we've ever found in the Williamson tunnels. Absolutely no reason for it, but it's an absolutely beautifully formed little sandstone arch between the side wall adjacent to the banqueting hall and this stone buttress that's been left jutting into the middle of the chamber. It's not very big, but it's a beautiful little thing. All these stones are wedge-shaped, perfectly cut, chamfered edges along the bottom, and they fit together beautifully. And it was one of the first things that we spotted when we first broke in here and saw it by just a torchlight from the top of a ladder when things were still very, very dangerous to be in there. And it was a wonderful sight. It really is something quite special. And the silliest thing is that it can't possibly serve any purpose at all. The main brick arch of the chamber is here. And that stone arch sort of butts up against it at that point. And then a brick arch continues on the other side. But it can't possibly serve any purpose. Williamson's men being allowed to practice their skills, I think, sometimes. It's with many things we found in here. And there's an old photograph I'm just throwing in. One of the first times we managed to get a proper photograph of it, climbing up a ladder very high up against a vertical spoil heap, hoping it wouldn't collapse, and looking over the top and seeing this arch. As you can see, the spoil was up there. This is before we actually started digging any spoil out in this area. It was much closer to the roof, further back behind the photographer, but here there was a dip. And this is one of the first sights we saw when we got up there. From that same point at the end of the platform, I'm now looking straight down towards the bottom. This is the main floor at that point there, and that's looking down into that water gully. And then looking down again, same position, right underneath the little stone arch. And there's the gate I went through to look straight down into the water gully. So quite a long way to go from top to bottom. You wouldn't want to fall over the edge there. And before we go back down again, between that concrete pile and this sandstone buttress sticking out with the lovely little arch above it, there is enough space to climb through there, maybe 3 feet. And we did attempt to carry on digging. We wanted to get beyond that brick buttress there. And we put up, it turns out there are buttresses in pairs. This concrete pile, has another one just 4 feet away behind the buttress there. And there was room to work between those two piles. The roof was very badly damaged where they punched through, but we thought we might be able to break through there. And as we went, we were building a small, because there wasn't an awful lot of space, a small scaffolding structure like a cage in that space between two of these piles, and then putting boards on top to try and protect our heads. And we were digging away, hoping to bust our way through to the other side of that brick buttress. But unfortunately, for some reason, the ground in that area was incredibly wet, and we found that the spoil that was coming down, as well as having lots of bricks in it because of the damage to the roof, it was just like slurry. It was so wet, it was just sliding down on us, and we decided we just had to abandon it. Apart from the fact that we might have been buried alive if there'd been a real slump. There were people actually using the site above at the time. There were offices and car parking and all sorts. And if a hole had appeared in the ground and a car had stepped down, I think they would have been looking at us. So we just had to abandon that. So it's that spot up there from the platform here. You have to climb up through scaffolding and across a few boards there. And there's just space to get through. But as I say, we had to abandon it. It was too dangerous. And I've turned around and I'm going to walk back across the platform, down onto the lower level, then get onto the ladder, climb down the ladder and out. And there we are near the top of the ladder. And that's looking down from the lower platform. And I'll be going down that ladder now. Back to the bottom, there's our entry hole. I'm going to bend almost double, climb out through there, steeply up the ramp, and off up the steps that take me out, up the gash, and up to the surface again. And that's your look at the magnet chamber. I don't know whether it would have made sense to people really, but I've done the best I can. And for anybody who could never get to visit it, it's one way to see what the place looks like inside. And we know quite definitely that this chamber continues in both directions. In one direction, it could go as far as the road as the banqueting hall does, as far as Mason Street. And in the other direction, we believe it would probably connect through into the rear end of the great tunnel that we're still searching for. But at the moment, as I say, we're boxed into that small section and we've got to try and find a way to break through, possibly working from the surface, making good the damage where the piles have punched through, and then carry on digging from below. But that's all in the future, and we'll just have to hope that we get the opportunity to get on the land and do that next. So hope you found that interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and that's it. Thank you.